Okay, so welcome again, everybody, to the Mental Health and Support for LGBTQ plus community session today. My name is Jack Walsh, Service Manager at Care First, and I'll be running through the session today with you, and hopefully we'll provide some beneficial and informative insights and considerations to take away. So anybody can experience a mental health problem, but those of us who identify as LGBT plus are potentially more likely to develop problems such as low self-esteem, depression, anxiety, substance abuse, things like that, self-harm, suicidal ideations, and potentially other more diagnosed mental health problems as well. So it's good to be mindful that perhaps the community are more liable to develop mental health issues or suffer with any of the things that we've mentioned in this slide today. But obviously, it doesn't mean that everybody will. We obviously just want to raise awareness that some of us might do. And if you've had a look at the article that was sent out last week supporting today's session, you'll see a couple of the stats and statistics around people who are maybe not accessing support, or how many people within the community in the last year have suffered with anxiety or depression, which is just over half. So kind of one of the underpinning reasons why we want to talk about a session today. However, being within the community does not cause these problems, and the reasons why those of us with LGBTQ identities are more likely to experience them can be very complicated and a lot more complex. However, it can be due to things like homophobia, biphobia and transphobia, perhaps feeling alienated in our family of origin, the experiences we might think we're going to expect or what we've had when we are facing or have come out, and perhaps social isolation or exclusion and rejection, and obviously the education around the LGBTQ community, but other kind of like groups as well, which experience social isolation, exclusion. However, we obviously want to be aware that there are and can be many positives in embracing our LGBTQ identity, and coming out can have a hugely positive impact on our well-being. Absolutely, it can also go the other way, and it can have a detrimental impact on our well-being. But we do want to talk about some of the positives as well, and try and encourage as many people as possible to, potentially come out when they're ready, and doing so in a comfortable setting. So it might mean that there leads to increased confidence in ourselves and our self-esteem and our self-worth, improved relationships with our friends and our family, a sense of community and belonging, freedom of self-expression and self-acceptance, and also increased resilience. And we're going to look at resilience as an area to support our mental well-being in a few slides' time. And often that's kind of getting things off our chest and getting things out there, and finally kind of opening up and being true to ourselves, to the people close to us, can be really helpful and really useful in terms of that self-confidence and that self-worth moving forwards, and also hopefully that self-acceptance in the people within our lives that are close to us. So how can we support our mental health? And there's a few key kind of topics for discussion on this session, which we'll briefly touch on. But like I said, would always encourage people to tap into the counselling support available at Care First to maybe find out a little bit more information around these topics and areas, and also your own kind of research and investigation in other areas and other sources. Also, we'll highlight a few a little bit later on, but we would also be keen to hear from you guys on where else you might receive support and where else you can signpost other people too. So the next few slides, we're just going to look at a few things. We talked about kind of increased resilience a few slides ago, so we'll look at building resilience in a bit more detail, some mindfulness exercises and suggestions, the 5 ways to well-being, which is something which I think underpins kind of everything we do, and we can introduce it into our lifestyle in every capacity. And also we'll just touch on some of the mental health support services. So how do we build resilience? Well, the Robertson Cooper model, just to provide a little bit of an insight into resilience, suggests that resilience is built from 4 corners: purposefulness, confidence, adaptability, and social support. If we consider that the central circle is our resilience, Some people are a lot more resilient than others, so their resilience bubble might be a lot bigger, or it might be a little bit smaller, and it's maybe something that we're working on enhancing. So if we consider purposefulness and how that impacts our resilience, having a purpose in life can give us that focus and that goal to work towards. Allows us to deal with some of the pressures and strains along the way, because we're motivated to do so in order to achieve our goal. That might be, coming out within the community. It might be something completely separate, like a career goal, or a hobby or a pastime that you have of away from work and away from home life, etc. So those purposes can give us that focus and that goal to work towards, and can help kind of set the foundations for our resilience. Confidence is another huge thing, and our confidence to tackle difficulties or tackle problems can increase or also decrease our levels of resilience. But we find that as we face more and more challenges or more and more situations, and we understand them better and get to know them better, that starts to build our confidence. And for example, if I ask the kind of rhetorical question, when you first started the role that you're in today, day one, out of 10, how confident were you in your job role? Compare that to what rating you might give yourself today, if you're maybe a few months in. And over time, that confidence can build and can increase our resilience in a particular scenario. Adaptability is another key one, and that's all about the different things we might be juggling at any one time. That might be duties and responsibilities at work. That might be balancing home and work. That might be balancing the good and the bad in our lives. So the pressures and the strain we're under around maybe LGBTQ issues or general things away from the community in our working lives, or maybe personal issues at home. It could be illness in the family. It could be relationship, things like that. So the adaptability to juggle things, but also kind of the adaptability to experience and support ourselves well, can help build that resilience. And we might be good at doing 4 things, but doing 5 things is a bit of a stretch. But if we do those 5 things, that's then going to lead us on to becoming more adaptable. And the next time around, we might be able to juggle 6 things. Just kind of thinking it like that. And social support is something which our training manager, Pat Garland-Smith, highlights as often the most important one. And social support is about the network of support that might be around us, and how when we know and we feel we've got that support around us, or we know we can turn to it, whatever that may be, friends, family, or a support service like a Samaritan's Care First or Mind, for example, give us a really good footing in terms of our resilience levels. We know we've got that support, so maybe we're a little bit more resilient and a little bit more confident in a problem or an issue. But we don't want to assume that everybody has a social support network. And I always like to pose a question of, if you or somebody who perhaps doesn't have the widest social support network or has one at all, where could you signpost them to? Who could they speak to? It might be their GP, it might be Care First, it might be tapping into a group or a kind of like a sports club or a society within their community that they can get involved with. There might be a regular LGBTQ community kind of group get together they can tap into. It might be a walking club, a reading club, a knitting club, anything like that. By engaging with other people around us that have maybe similar kind of similar interests, help to develop that social support network. And perhaps we create those relationships of people that we can support, and thus hopefully increasing our resilience. If we just look at a few of the things to maybe build resilience, there are lots of other things out there. And if you just put that question, how do I build resilience, into Google, you'll be hit with millions and millions of suggestions on the various different pages. But we've just consolidated these 7 tips here as thinking points and considerations to take away from today to have a little think about. And you might identify from this session that actually you've been doing some of these already. So that's going some way to help establish your resilience. The first one is recognizing what our signs of stress are. So what are our stressors? What are the pressures in life? It might be the kids, it might be relationship, it might be workload, things like that. Or perhaps the decision of coming out is a stressor which is really impacting our mental well-being at that time. Physical health is a really good starting point, and physical health and mental health have a direct correlation. So it's really good to try and stay on top of our physical well-being, as much as possible, because that can give us the foundations to really improve and stay on top of our mental well-being as well. physical health can have impacts on our sleep, on our diet, on our blood circulation, our mood, things like that, and can just really set the foundation for being able to tackle problems that might impact our mental well-being, better than if we weren't staying on top of physical health. And we're not saying that has to be 2-3 hours in the gym every day, like the kind of Instagram stories and posts and models portray. Actually, it's just all about doing some kind of moderate exercise, a few times a week to get the heart rate going and get some exercise up. So in the current lockdown settings, it might be playing a game of tennis with somebody, going for a walk, doing some gardening, those sorts of things, obviously maintaining safe social distancing as well. Strengthen your mindfulness is a really good one as well, and we'll overlap into the mindfulness suggestions in a few seconds. Identify and use our strengths. So know our limits, know our strengths, focus on those, and perhaps seek support on some of the areas we're not so strong on. As sometimes we're our own worst enemy, and we set ourselves high expectations. And it's all about identifying what we're good at and where we need to get some support from. And it might just be sometimes tips and advice, rather than somebody kind of acting on our behalf to deal with a situation or execute a responsibility at work. Increase positive emotions, and I like to link this one in with the counter unhelpful thinking, because I always try and think that when something happens or something goes wrong, sometimes we kind of have a denial initial reaction, or an angry reaction, or we're worried or we're stressed and we're anxious about things. But can we try and counter that unhelpful thinking, and can we try and stay positive? Is there a way to think of the situation as a positive? Is it going to be a learning opportunity, or is it an opportunity for me to engage with other people and seek support? And knowing that this is happening in this moment right now, it's not going to last forever. So there will be a time where I'll be out of this tricky situation or this difficult time, and I can move forwards. And what I can do to do that might be some of the things we mentioned, like our physical health, identifying our strengths, tapping into social support, things like that. And engaging meaningful activities links into some of the suggestions we might look at in a little bit around the 5 ways to wellbeing. Things that mean something to us and give us a sense of reward. It might be helping others, it might be volunteering, it might be engaging in meaningful physical activity and getting some real true reward from. So yeah, hopefully some ideas and some suggestions around building resilience there for you to take away. And the next one is looking at mindfulness, which you'll probably notice overlaps a little bit into resilience, but also into the 5 ways to wellbeing, which we'll look at next. And for those who are not aware of mindfulness before, it's still a relatively new term for me as well, but I've just pulled a little definition offline for you to have a little read over, which is around mindfulness being something that maintains a moment-by-moment awareness of our thoughts, our feelings, our body sensations, not getting too carried away by thinking too far into the future, really focusing on the now. And if anybody's familiar with the Last Dance documentary, the Netflix documentary on Michael Jordan, the basketball player for the Chicago Bulls, there's a great piece in one of the episodes towards the end there where he talks about being in the moment and not getting too carried away with the next championship or the next season or what's happening next, but just really taking stock and being mindful to take in everything around you right now. So if something good happens, really take time to kind of, stay in that moment and enjoy it as it happens, and not think too far ahead or think about moving forward too quick. Kind of savor the moments. So I thought that was a really good kind of representation. But just a couple of kind of mindfulness exercises which you might have looked into, or you might want to go away and have a look into. I haven't gone into the description of how to do these. My suggestions here would be there are some walkthrough tips online, so you can put it into Google, or you can go onto YouTube, and if you Google meditation classes, etc., yoga classes, things like that, there will be walkthroughs there. But also the counsellors who operate our 24/7 Counselling Helpline are able to talk people through and go through these exercises with you. So so they're the experts there, and that's my next step in terms of encouraging you to seek those kind of walkthrough steps with the professionally trained people that are best to do them. But mindfulness exercises might include meditation, and they can include breathing, calm breathing, deep breathing, that sort of thing. Deep muscle relaxation is a really good one, which helps with kind of your body tense and body pressures. And a lot of sports people use deep muscle relaxation the night before and ahead of kind of activity training, that sort of thing. Self-suggestion, which is kind of updated for self-hypnosis. But there are many others out there as well, and a lot of mindfulness, not necessarily an exercise or an activity, and it might be things to do physically or things like that to occupy your mind and stuff like that. So those are some of the mindfulness exercises that are most common, and I definitely would encourage you to have a little look online, a little look on YouTube, or maybe speak to our counsellors to get some kind of tips and actually be talked through how to do these exercises and activities. They're really, really good to introduce into our lifestyle. And now the 5 ways to wellbeing are things we can also do to stay on top of things. So the first one is connect, and it's all about connecting with the people around us. So we might need to get a bit creative at the moment, given the current lockdown situation. We might be wanting to connect with people who are still shielding, so we still can't see them, that sort of thing. So, connecting with other people around us is maybe, having a chat with my neighbour over the fence, meeting someone in an open space like a park and having a walk or doing some exercise with them 2 meters apart. Maybe using technology to engage with people, we might not be able to see, kind of grandparents or people in our lives who are in a shielding group. So are we able to, maybe write them a letter, or are we able to, kind of FaceTime or Skype or do a Zoom video call, that sort of thing. And the next one linked into kind of around resilience and things like that again. So it's about activity and exercise and that correlation between physical health and mental health. When we exercise and when we're active, our body releases endorphins, the feel-good hormones, and they can give us that kind of buzz after exercise and activity. And another thing is take notice. So it kind of links back into mindfulness a second ago, and actually taking notice of the things around us. It might be staying in the moment and kind of, staying on the positives, or it might be when we go for a walk, we actually take some time out to sit down and listen to the nature, listen to the birds, watch the kind of, the ducks, that sort of thing, just really taking the moment as it's happening. Learn is another really good way, and this is probably my favourite favourite of the 5, and it's about learning new things. So it might be within our role. Are there some e-learning or some courses we can do to help improve our profile or add to our CV? Maybe we want to learn a new language or learn a new sport outside of work and outside of our personal life. That gives us that kind of that purpose. Again, hopefully you can start to see the link to kind of building resilience and building positive mental well-being. And the final one is give, and there's lots of research studies and things out there that say when we give and when we help other people, we get a real good kind of sense of reward and positivity because we're helping others and it rubs off on us. And that might be volunteering and helping people in our local community. It might be helping people who are shielding at the moment in terms of their shopping or connecting with them to have a chat. If you're into sport, you might have noticed that some of the sports teams around the country have been taking time out to ring phone round some of their older fans, etc., because they appreciate that they're going to be a group that is in social isolation a little bit more and maybe experiencing loneliness at this time. So it's just all about kind of that giving and helping others as much as we can, and obviously as appropriately as we can in line with social distancing guidelines during the current pandemic. And just a little bit on mental health support services. Some of these we touched on in the article. So we can always tap into the NHS and our GP and our doctors. The Mind link on screen now that you will have seen in the article has lots of resources, websites and phone numbers for a variety of different support services which you might find useful. Stonewall is also a really good organisation to tap into to see what support and information is available. And you might have noticed that some of the stats and figures we pulled out for the article are from a report that Stonewall conducted. Care First are the employee assistance program, and we'll talk about that in a little bit in a moment's time. And you might also benefit from tapping into Samaritans. We sometimes often do support the Samaritans. They are a really good listening service. They also provide a lot of support and help if somebody's in a suicidal situation. So another really good service, which is quite different to Care First. And the service that Care First offers is the 24/7 Counselling Helpline. So we have UK-based, professionally trained and accredited counsellors operating our support line all day, every day throughout the year. And the initial aim is to provide in-the-moment support as many times as you need it. So there's no limits to the amount of times you can call up. However, you may also be eligible to tap into structured counselling. So if it's appropriate, you may be referred for structured counselling following a brief clinical assessment on the phone with one of our telephone counsellors. But when you call up, please do check with a counsellor what your organisation's eligibility is, and they'll be able to advise if there is structured counselling available, and also what other things might be available to you as well. Our information team provide a lot of practical and general information and support. So as well as the counselling and emotional support available, they can provide support and information on finances, money and debt, employment queries, furloughs, sick pay, things like that. Also, our managers, team leaders, and mental health first aiders can tap into the service to access support for your role. So it might be how you can refer someone to the service, how you can handle a difficult conversation, how you can identify and spot mental health issues and mental health, pressures and stresses, that sort of thing. We've also got the lifestyle website, which your organisation will have a unique username and password for. And there may be digital tools as well. So we have on the care-first.co.uk website, we have the Wobot widget, which is artificial intelligence chatbot, and anybody can go onto that website and have a brief conversation with Wobot. You'll see a prompt in the bottom right hand of your screen. However, Microsoft Internet Explorer and Edge browsers do experience issues with that. So if you can, please do try using a Chrome, Safari, or Mozilla browser. And your organisation may have also opted into other digital tools as well. So it might be worth asking a question of a counsellor or an information specialist when you call up, what's my eligibility and what potentially can I access in terms of support. Just to finish on and to say and remind everybody that the Care First EAP, the Employee Assistance Programme, is available to you through your employer, is completely free and confidential, and it's completely inclusive as a service to support anybody contacting us. So all of our counsellors are trained to be non-judgmental and to support with whatever you want to speak about. And I think, as I've alluded to throughout the session today, we can also signpost and direct to other specialist services, as well as being able to support and provide 24/7 in the moment support. That's everything from me. Hopefully useful and beneficial. And again, just a thank you from me in terms of you joining today's session. If you have any questions, I will try to address these in the questions box in a few moments' time. But like I said, for any expansion on some of the exercises and activities we talked about, for any maybe more clinically inclined questions, I would encourage you to call the service and speak to one of our counselling team or our clinical management team. As being a service manager, the extent of my knowledge and expertise is more kind of operational awareness as opposed to clinical insight. So hopefully really useful today for everybody. Thanks again from me. Please do look out for future sessions like we'll be delivering, and enjoy the rest of your day and afternoon.